Well, it's a sing-along tour, Michael. About 6 months ago, the Sing-Along Society of North America called and said, Super, we think you could help us get rid of profanity on the highway. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, have you ever pulled up alongside a car and seen someone singing to a record? They're happy. It's very hard to sing a swear word.
I'll say it is, yes, indeed.
So they felt that if I could go on a week-long tour, we're going to cover about 5,000 miles. I'll be singing night and day. That maybe I could be like a Pied Piper. People would follow me, start to sing along, and then when I left, I could leave kind of a musical highway through the world.
Trailer for sale, rooms to let 50 cents. By no means, by no means, king of the road.
Super Dave Osborne on the Super Dave Show.
One of the best. I was raised on that show.
You were?
Absolutely. Not
Filmed in
literally.
Toronto, Canada.
Do you know
Was
a little side thing about that show? I'm going to tell you two quick stories, okay? One, the first Super Dave we ever did, I was on the CN Tower. It's the tallest structure in the world, and I was going to jump.
Yeah.
But I yelled down, which was 5 miles.
I like that you told the folks what CN Tower was.
Yeah.
So
you know, this could be your kind of thing. Can I tell you, this reminds me a little bit of Mike Douglas.
Really?
And I'm going to tell you the greatest talk show in the history of talk shows was Mike Douglas.
Mike Douglas.
And his co-host was Sly.
Now people are going to think that's Michael Douglas. You should probably explain to the folks.
Well, who's watching? Is this in the United States?
Well, I'll explain to them.
Yeah, no, don't explain everything.
Mike Douglas.
Oh,
Mike
you
Douglas
just take everything out of it. There's no sense being here.
I'm saying to the folks at home that Mike Douglas was a talk show host, someone in the vein of Merv Griffin. He was a singer.
Call me when you're through, because I forgot what I was talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
And he had a talk
His
show.
co-host this week was
And
Sly
every week he had a co-host.
of Sly and the Family Stone.
Sure.
And he was stoned out of his bird.
Probably
So
3
they
hours
opened
late.
the show, and he says, Sly, I understand you're getting married. And Sly said, we're going to play 2 engagement on Sunday, and then Monday we're going over to Cleveland, and then we're going to come back. He said, no, aren't you getting married? I don't know if the Horns are going to be there for this engagement, but hopefully we'll be all right. We'll play and get it done. And Mike goes like this, boop. So let's go to commercial. Now, as Sly is sitting here, he brings out Peter Marshall.
Yeah.
From Hollywood Squares. Peter sits right here.
Because the idea of the show is to
don't
mix.
do this, don't do this. And he says, Peter, who's a great guy, by the way. Peter, he says,
His son plays
you're
baseball.
taking Hollywood Squares to Vegas. You're taking it to the road.
Yeah.
He says, yeah. He said, are you going to change it? He says, no. He says, when it comes to Hollywood Squares, you got to call a spade a spade. Oh. And Sly turns to Peter Marshall on this show and said, I'm going to get you. They go to commercial, they come back, and Sly is still staring at Peter. And Mike Douglas now says, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to bring out the smallest man in the world, Ringling Brothers' own Mishu the Midget. And this guy comes out, and he is the smallest man in the world. Mike picks him up, puts him in the thing, his shoes are like this, that's what you see. And so what you see on camera now is Sly still staring at Peter, and him talking to Mishu. And he says, Mishu, how old were you when you joined the circus? And Mishu said, Brod. He said, what? Bridget. No, when did you first join? He said, Brod. He said, do you speak English? He said, Brit. He said, oh my God, let's go to commercial. They come back, they bring out his interpreter who is wall-eyed. And that's what you had for the last part of the show. Sly staring at Peter and a wall-eyed interpreter with a midget who didn't speak English.
That's going way smoother than this show.
I had a little guy on my show that I found in the
A little
Royal York.
person.
A little person.
Should explain to the folks.
And he was an alcoholic. And
Like Adam
we
Egret.
put him up. Yeah, we put him up at the Royal York Hotel, and I would get calls. Mr. Einstein, your midget
The Royal
is
York
walking down the hall.
is a very famous hotel in Toronto.
Mr. Einstein, your midget is walking down the hall in his underpants. I said, first of all, I don't own him.
Yeah.
He's a guest on the show, and
Who
don't
said
call him
that
my
to you?
midget. The Royal York called me. The hotel.
A hotel, a person.
Yeah. So we had him, and I could not, he's the only person that made me laugh all the time because he didn't. I was doing this thing where I was explaining the entire layout of the compound in miniature. It was a 7-minute ad lib. And behind me, I had Fergie, who was the little person. He looked exactly like Ronald Reagan in a suit and tie, teeter-tottering with fish. We had gotten a tank of fish that balanced him out. So they were teeter-tottering. I'm trying not to look at it. All of a sudden, change hits the floor, and he says, "My money," in the middle of me talking.
Yeah.
And the stagehand went, "Shh, shh, no, but it's my money." So we had to redo it. And then another time, and this is horrible, but it kills me. John Biner was the host of Bizarre.
Yeah, he was the host. For the folks at home that don't know, he was a famous impressionist.
Can we explain what Bizarre is? It was a TV show in,
Yes.
I believe, the.
But I think part of the reason Super Dave got John Biner to host was because he could do a lot of impressions and a lot of characters.
Yes,
John
yes.
Biner was brilliant.
So it was just John Biner and a bunch of Canadian actors.
It's a great show. It went 6 years, the first series in the history of cable.
No, I know. I wasn't saying it as an epithet. I meant I liked it.
Don't use epithet when you don't know what it means. We went over words before this show, and I asked you, do you know what epithet means? You said no, and now you use it.
But let me ask you this, though.
No, let me go on with this story.
Oh, is there a story?
So, Biner brings me out. I was also the producer on the show.
You played,
And he showed-
and you played the producer.
Oh my God. And he showed a clip of me screwing up. So I said to him, you know what? I quit. Go to Hollywood and get some coke-sniffing producer. I'm gone. And we're walking down the hall. And I'm talking about human decency and how to treat people.
Yeah.
We go into my dressing room, and it is a freak show. I've got a blow-up doll on a swing.
Yeah.
It's the kinkiest place. I open the shift robe and take Fergie out. He was sleeping.
Yeah.
Put him on the ground. He has bunny shoes on. I snap a rubber glove on his head, and now we're walking. And I'm talking about human decency and how you treat people. We come to my car. I have a blind limo driver. I open up the trunk. I throw Fergie in, slam the trunk, get in the car. I tell the blind driver to take me home. He hits the wall. It's another car, into a tree, back. All of a sudden, a storm hits. We race inside because you know the Toronto storms. Explain it to me.
The Toronto storms are incredible. No, they're incredibly
Okay,
powerful.
okay. We're in here eating and drinking, okay? All of a sudden, I realize 45 minutes later, I left Fergie in the trunk. I run outside, I open the trunk, and he looks at me and said, "What the fuck are you doing?"